Heyo, PotatoLegion here, I hope you're doing well today. This is a full tutorial on how to correctly get every type of stun save in the game to prevent a teammate from being hooked by the killer. We'll be going over flashlight saves with the addition of the CJ tech and locker flashlight saves, pallet drop saves and head-on saves. I will go over how to actually pull off each type at the start of each section so you can first understand the mechanics of the save. And then I will go into detail on how you should set yourself up to make sure you're in the correct position to pull this off, as experienced killers will not allow you an easy opportunity to get these types of saves, so you have to position yourself correctly. Please feel free to skip to the section you want more coverage on in the timestamps in the description, but I'd highly recommend you watch the entire video. If you found this useful in any way, then please support my channel by hitting that like button below and subscribing to my channel. Let me know if there's any other tutorials you'd like me to produce by leaving a comment below. Enough of me rambling on, let's get straight into this tutorial. A flashlight save must be timed correctly. You must start to use your flashlight at the exact moment the killer's animation where the killer's hand is in line with their shoulder. It takes roughly 2.56 seconds to stun the killer with a flashlight, but I would highly recommend using the animation due to latency on servers messing up timings. Now watch back in slow motion to see the exact time I click the flashlight. Bang on the second the killer's picking up hand is in line with their shoulder. I've drawn a line on the exact frame I click the flashlight. Look how in line the hand is with his shoulder. If your flashlight is not making the thin beam shape as you can see here, you aren't blinding the killer. In order to work on your timings, it's key to understand when you're blinding too early or too late. Here I am blinding the killer too early as it's way before the hand reaches the shoulder. You'll also notice that I do get the killer blind, but because it happened before the killer's able to move, it does not count as a stun. If you get the killer blind points as shown on the left and didn't get the stun, done it too early. Now watch as I do it too late. You will see that the killer now has the time to avoid the blind stun altogether, and you won't even be rewarded with the blind stun points because you didn't fully blind in time. This is why it's so important for you to try and practice in a custom so you can practice your timings. Now you understand how to know if you're doing it too early or too late and can adjust your timings correctly by doing it later or sooner. This is how a flashlight save looks to a victim being saved. It's exactly the same timings on both sides where the hand is in line with the shoulder. Now let's talk how we can actually position ourselves to get the perfect scenario for a flashlight save. It will be very unlikely the killer just stands there like in the tutorial section, therefore you must position yourself correctly and be patient. If you are injured and aren't running Iron Will, then be very careful as the killer can hear you if you're too close and will either change direction to avoid your blind or chase you away and even down you. It's always important to make sure you're healthy and quiet when attempting a flashlight save, and that you are in a close enough position to be able to jump in at the right moment. Pick an obstacle that hides your body well and close enough so that you can get to the front of the killer when they pick the survivors up. Bear in mind if you're successful once, the killer will instantly become insecure about future saves, making it extremely more difficult to do it again. And if the killer is facing an obstacle such as a wall, then don't waste your time attempting a flashlight save. You'll just reveal yourself and cause more trouble for your team. If the killer is using infectious fright, then your chances of getting a flashlight save have dropped massively. A smart killer will force those who screamed nearby away or attempt to down them. If, however, the killer still goes to pick the victim up, then just quickly jump in and attempt the flashlight save. Using perks such as Bond and Empathy so you can see where your teammate is and where they are going down so you can position yourself and can help massively when attempting a flashlight save. Don't forget the killers can bring Lightborn, so if you load in with a team with multiple flashlights, expect the killer has brought it. You can always confirm this by attempting to flashlight blind the killer during a chase when you've dropped the pallet on them. How to perform a CJ tech. A CJ tech is when you force the killer to pick up a survivor rather than break the pallet. How we do this is by stunning the killer with the pallet, vaulting the pallet at the same time they attempt to break it, forcing them to pick up the survivor by the pallet. You must stun the killer with the pallet for higher success rate. We then have to vault back and put off a flashlight blind, but you will not have a lot of time to do this. You should never force a CJ tech situation. The only reason you would attempt this is if you were trying to go for the pallet stun save, but the killer found you and you had to drop the pallet. The CJ tech is very difficult to pull off and only works against inexperienced killers. Trust me, if you know the killer is confident by the way they are playing and you're injured, do not attempt this, as you will get yourself downed and put massive pressure on your team. I would perform this if I'm confident the killer is inexperienced and I'm not injured and it's my only option to save my teammates. How to perform a locker flashlight save. A locker flashlight save has difficult timings and is different to a standard flashlight save. You want to make sure you are standing so the locker is on the right hand side of you, otherwise this will not work. Start to use your flashlight when the killer's neck is still bent, the survivor's resting perfectly straight on the shoulder, and the killer's right arm is straight. This roughly takes about 3.83 seconds to complete, but just like the normal flashlight save, try and use the animation rather than counting in seconds. Now watch in slow motion and let's get a real closer look at the exact frame I start to use my flashlight. The killer's neck is slightly tilted, their right arm is straight, and the survivor is perfectly rested on their shoulder. The same principle applies as a normal flashlight save when finding out if you've done this too early or too late. You'll get a notification that you blinded the killer but the stun didn't work if you were too early, and not receive one if you were too late. Here's an example in slow motion of me doing the save too early. Look how the neck is tilted and the arm is straight, but the survivor is not perfectly rested on the shoulder and is still high up in the air. I also received blindness points to indicate I'd done this too early. Now see me doing the flashlight save too late. You can see here that the survivor has now rested too long on the shoulder and has now got a slight bend in his back. His left arm is now flopping over the killer's right shoulder. The killer now has enough time to dodge my flashlight attempt, thus me getting no points for a flashlight stun because I'd done it too late. Make sure you time it so the arm is not showing over and the back is straight when on the shoulder. Also be careful about your positioning, as if you stand too far over to the left then you won't get a flashlight blind at all. This can be indicated when the flashlight does not show a beam. If you're going to attempt locker flashlight saves, then honestly your only real chance of pulling them off is to be in a survive with friends and to communicate when you're jumping in a locker, as most solo queues won't just jump in a locker even if you're nearby with a flashlight. Some real talented YouTubers use this in their videos and really punish some killers with it. You should bring head on as well, just in case your partner who is going for the flashlight save is chased away by the killer. You can then just head on them and get away. How to pallet stun save. A pallet stun save is extremely easy to do. You want to drop the pallet the second the killer has movement again. The timing is different from a flashlight because a flashlight has to charge up its beam for 2 seconds, whereas dropping a pallet is an instant stun. So if you do it too early, you'll just push the killer back without any stun because of his invincibility frames while picking up the survivor. The second the survivor is resting on the shoulder perfectly as if they've just finished their pickup animation is when you want to drop the pallet. You can see here how the survivor is rested, the killer's back is straight and he's ready to move. Positioning yourself follows the same principles as a flashlight save as I mentioned earlier. Make sure you're invisible to the killer and can get to the pallet in time. Make sure that you always try and drop the pallet from behind the killer, as if you attempt this facing the killer, the only way you'll get the pallet save is if they swing and hit you, and if you're injured and just took a hit, you're not saving anybody, you'll need the saving. If the killer doesn't go for the swing, they can walk back in time as seen here to avoid the drop, so always catch them by surprise and try and go from behind. If you're not injured and can only go in front of the killer, then body block and drop the pallet, even if it means taking a hit. This is how a pallet drop looks if you do it too early. The killer is just pushed back, and obviously if you do it too late, you'll drop the pallet and the killer won't be stunned. How to head on save. The timing for a head on save is actually exactly the same as a pallet stun save. You're more likely to get a pallet stun save over a head on save, so I'd highly recommend you watch that section to learn more about the timings of a pallet save if you skip straight to here. The key factor to a locker save is to either already be in the locker where the survivor goes down, which is really unlikely unless you coordinate it with a Swift on comms, or to sneak in the locker if the killer walks away from the downed survivor, which could happen if there are other survivors nearby who the killer tries to get a hit off. If you manage to sneak in the locker without the killer noticing, that's great. Now you have to rely on the downed survivor not going too close to the locker, as the killer may accidentally grab you out of it, trying to grab them. As you can see in the last few head-on clips, it's exactly the same timing as if you were to drop pallet, as the stun is instant. Honestly, my hat's off to you if you can pull off a head-on stun save. You're more likely to get a stun save by predicting which hook the killer is going to and jumping in a locker on that path and then stunning them. That's it guys, that's the end of the tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. I do hope you've learned something new here today. If you did, then please support my channel by liking the video and subscribing so more people can see this video and learn something new just like you did. Thanks so much guys, I hope to see all of you in game. Take care.